Still jumping on the call, and that is totally cool. Just make sure your microphones are muted. And again, you don't need your camera on, so feel free to turn it off, kick back, relax, and hopefully you'll take away some really great information about this phenomenal new resource by Pearson Canada. It's called the Phonics Companion. And when I saw this, I was like, this is something we have to have. It is so helpful for our teachers and 100% aligned with our phonics expectations. So it's going to be a really helpful tool to help you with your teaching. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our two presenters from Pearson Canada today. We are fortunate to have Siobhan Murphy as well as Crystal Dahl. So Siobhan Murphy is the Planning and Implementation Manager for Literacy for Pearson Canada. She has been in the field of education for 20 years, including teaching at the elementary and the junior high levels, as a district lead literacy teacher, and as on secondment at the Edmonton Regional Learning Consortium as a literacy consultant. And Siobhan is super passionate about all things literacy. She completed her master's degree of education at the U of A, and her research was on assessment for learning and elementary writing. So we're really pleased to have Siobhan with us today as well. Crystal Dahl is joining us. Crystal and I get to communicate all the time. I'm so happy she was able to carve out the time to meet you guys today. She has been with Pearson Canada as the Pearson Account Executive for all Alberta schools and school districts, and is a former educator of more than 20 years. She's really excited to be here with us today and really happy to have her supporting Calgary Catholic. And between Siobhan and Crystal, they're here to answer questions. I'm going to monitor chat. Siobhan, Crystal, is it okay if I interrupt you? Do you want me to save them? What do you prefer?
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, you can just interrupt. That's totally fine.
So feel free to use the chat, everybody. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Crystal.
All right, well, thank you so much. I am going to introduce Siobhan. I'll be very quick about it. You've heard a bit of an introduction of her already, but Siobhan is going to share her screen. She's going to do all your presentations today, and I'm just here to support her in the chat. So glad to have you here today and to be joining you. So hopefully everybody's had a lovely start to your day, and we'll carry that over. So Siobhan, over to you.
Thanks, Crystal. I think I need some privileges to share my screen, though. It looks like.
Are you not able to just click share in the top right there, Siobhan?
No, it's it says only meeting organizers and presenters when I click on it.
Well, let me see if I have the power to give that to you. You probably should have checked prior. I apologize.
While
Just
you're
going to check the
at
participant list and give you permission.
Sure. And while you're doing that, just before we get started, I would like to start actually with Pearson Canada's National Land Acknowledgement. So we've been doing lots of work through our Truth and Reconciliation Council and have revisited our land acknowledgement. So today I'd like to just share our National Land Acknowledgement on behalf of Pearson Canada. Pearson Canada acknowledges the history of the land on which we all gather. It's a combination of treaty and traditional unceded territory and Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many Inuit, Métis, and First Nations whose footsteps have marked the land where each of you currently resides or are visiting. We also recognize the land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude. Indigenous peoples' connection to the land teaches us about their inherent responsibility to protect and respect Mother Earth. With this acknowledgement, we honor their relatives who have been buried here, as well as those who live and work here today. Pearson Canada strives for respectful partnerships with all peoples of this country as we search for collective healing and true reconciliation and honor of this beautiful land. And I still see I'm waiting on permissions to share. So are you okay if I kind of start talking and then I'll put my slides up when we get things sorted out? Does that work?
Please do. Please share, because I was not the creator of this, but I've got someone on it right now. So
Okay.
you start and we will find a
Sure.
way for you to share your screen.
Okay. So thanks for having me this afternoon, and I'm happy to be here to share Pearson Canada's newest resource, the Phonics Companion, which was just released this week online. And so I know you'll have digital access to it until the print copy comes out, which will be sometime in October is the plan for that. But in the meantime, you'll still be able to start implementing and using the tools and lessons from the Phonics Companion by accessing them digitally. And I believe that you will receive that information on how to access the digital file from your school board. So just so you're a little bit aware of where the Phonics Companion kind of came from, it's really a result of about 4 years of research conducted here in Alberta in both rural and urban schools. So our authors are actually from the University of Alberta, so Dr. George Giorgio and Christy Dunn. And so they worked in classrooms in kindergarten to grade 3. And then they took all their research and made it into a scope and sequence that actually features 120 letter sound correspondences. And then they built a 3-part lesson for each letter sound correspondence that's really consistent and explicit in its design, and really allows for students the opportunity to explore the content, model it, apply it, and then of course consolidate it through interactive reading activities. We do know that phonics is really only one part of a comprehensive literacy structure, so still really key, but one part of it. We also know that vocabulary, reading comprehension, and reading fluency are just a few examples of some of the other components that make up your literacy program.
Hey, Siobhan, I'm going to stop you. You
Oh,
should be able
yes.
to share if you want to
Okay,
give it a
great.
try.
Yes, I see the share button is there. So let me
Hallelujah. Thank
pop my
you.
slides up. There we go. Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for bearing with me in the meantime. Here we go. There. Now, hopefully you can see my slides. Stop me or jump in if you can't. But hopefully they're up there now. So just kind of, again, we want to be able to utilize these lessons within the Phonics Companion to really support students' reading, the reading fluency, target word features in the lessons. High frequency words are another thing that you'll see show up. And so that's kind of just a little bit of background on, how the Phonics Companion kind of came to be. So let's kind of go from there. I've got a weird pop-up on my other screen. And just kind of talk a little bit about what phonics is. I'm just going to give you a tiny bit of background, and then we'll jump into how the resource is organized. Oh, I think I'm getting a bit of feedback. And then how it's organized and some of the parts that are in there. And then I'll also take you on a quick tour of the website. So there is a companion site that goes along with the Phonics Companion book. So phonics is really the teaching of letter sound correspondences and how to use these correspondences to decode and spell words. And for most students, it's really a necessary component for achieving high levels of word recognition. We know that phonics instruction should be explicit and systematic. Explicit means that the letter sound relationships are directly taught to students. Students are told, for example, that the letter T stands for T. Systematic means that it follows a suggested scope and sequence, and we'll talk about that scope and sequence in a little bit because there is one that is part of the Phonics Companion. And so we really want to think about having an intentional, structured way where we can teach phonics so that we can really support our readers right from their early school years. And as I mentioned before, we know that phonics is not enough on its own. So there's all those other components that play into it. And we're also, visiting phonics principles as we're reading stories to students. And you'll see that as part of the lessons as well, where we can reinforce some of the understandings in some of those other instructional contexts. Okay, so why we want to teach phonics, and you don't need to write this down. You'll actually find a lot of this information in the front part of the Phonics Companion book. So that's going to be a great part for you to start off with and take a peek at. It's only a handful of pages, but there's a lot of great information in there around how the book is organized, why we want to teach phonics, and an annotated lesson that you'll be able to see. So really helpful information. So when you get access to the digital copy, spend a little bit of time going through those first handful of pages so you can really get the understanding of how things are organized there and what kind of tools and components are part of the phonics companion. But why we want to teach phonics is really we know that students can benefit from the correspondences between letters of the written language and sounds they represent. We also know that it helps them in their reading, of course. And we want to make sure too that they can blend those words. That's going to help them with their reading fluency. If we often find too that when students have instruction in phonics, it produces better results than non-targeted. And also then of course word recognition, which we know that that's going to help them in their reading fluency and help them in their comprehension as they're reading. So lots of key reasons why we want to teach phonics, but here's just 5 of those reasons. As I mentioned, and I know we have limited time together today, but you will have access to the digital phonics companion book. And inside there, that's where you're actually going to find the 120 lessons. And they're detailed lessons. You'll see a lesson. I'll take you through one before our time is over today. And lessons actually begin, there's about, after the first 20 pages, you'll jump right into lesson 1. And I'll talk a little bit about where you might want to begin. The other thing that's included as well is the companion website. And you'll see on my screen here that there's a couple little boxes there, those cards. So there's some information about the resource and some key information about, again, how it's organized and where to start. So I'll show you that when we jump on the website. So I'll stay on my slides just till the very end, and then I'll jump over and do a little website tour for you. The lesson resources are also on there. You'll be able to see there's like masters that go with them. There's also videos, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and they're found on there. And then, of course, there's the assessments and teacher tools, which is another component of the Phonics Companion. So that website is going to be continually updated with new research and so on. So it's definitely a place that you're going to want to come back to. You're going to need to go on there too to get some of the lesson resources. And likely you're going to be going on there too to share the video clips that are done by speech language pathologists, because they are also student friendly. So you'll probably be on there daily. And so again, it'll be a website that's always updated, but you'll continue to have access to that. Once your print copy arrives, you'll continue to have access to the companion website, the Phonics companion website. Okay, so I kind of mentioned before that there was a suggested scope and sequence, because oftentimes people say, like, what order do I teach things in? Do I start at lesson 1? Where do I go? And so there is a suggested scope and sequence. Now, there was many examples that they looked at when they decided, you know, where they're going to start, and looked at the scope and sequences that were available out there. And so with those in mind, some of the ones that were available out there, as well as from the feedback that they received from teachers who were piloting scope and sequences, they decided, the authors, so Dr. George Giorgio and Christy Dunn, decided to look at really 2 key principles in developing this resources scope and sequence. And those are the frequency of letter sound correspondences in children's books, as well as the teacher's feedback on what groups of letter sound correspondences go together. And so, for example, they grouped all the R-controlled vowels, even though they don't follow one another necessarily in frequency. So just kind of keep that in mind. Again, that information's in the front part of the book, but that's how this scope and sequence is developed. So it may look different than some of the other ones that you've seen, but they certainly took a lot of, you know, things, kept a lot of things in mind as they developed this one. And so you'll have the full scope and sequence. I obviously just have up to lesson 120. I obviously just have just a short version here just to kind of show you, you know, what it looks like. You'll notice though that in the first column, you can see the order of each letter sound correspondence. In the second column there, they have the grapheme, and then next to that, then phoneme, and then you can just kind of see it from there on your screen. But that's how it's organized. You'll also notice that they've included high frequency words in their lesson and word lists. So look for those when we jump over to look at the sample lesson. So oftentimes people say, well, then where do I start? Do I start at lesson 1? Where do I go from there? So in kindergarten, if you're working with kindergarten students, it's suggested by beginning to introduce them to the first 10 to 15 letter sound correspondences in the scope and sequence. And some students have already had exposure to those, maybe through like a daycare program or a preschool. But also the other thing that we want to think about too is it really depends on your class. So as we look to grade 1, ideally, you're probably going to start from lesson 1. The first few lessons may be new to some students. They may be a little bit of an overview, but we want to make sure that students have time to review, practice, and consolidate the information that was maybe shared in kindergarten. And so it doesn't hurt to review some of that. There also is, as you're looking towards like grade 2 and 3 and thinking about, well, where do I begin with them? Do I start at lesson 1? Likely you're not going to start at lesson 1, but if you actually look at there's a quick screener tool that's provided, and you'll be able to see that in the assessments and tools, and it's talked about in the front section of the Phonics Companion. Once you collect that data, you can start to see what students have an understanding of. That's going to help you choose the starting point for your whole class, and then you can just go in that order that's in there. So you're probably going to start at the letter sound correspondence that is unknown to about 80% of your students. And then if you have some students that you have to that you may identify that might need some extra support, that quick screener will help you do that, and then you might group them to provide some extra support to them if needed. And then in regards to the pacing, so people, often ask like, how frequently are you doing these lessons? Given the number of weeks in a school year and the number of letter sound correspondences that are provided and to be taught in grade 1 and 2, you should probably consider covering at least 2 letter sounds per week is what Dr. George Giorgio and Christy Dunn have suggested, with a day for practice in between and a review lesson after every 4 letter correspondences. And you'll see that as we go through the lessons. We'll actually look at lesson 4 and you'll kind of see how there's a little bit of a review built in there. So again, you want to be able to get through all the sound letter correspondences that you need to cover off, but that will kind of just give you a bit of a guide. And again, that information is also in the front section of the Phonics Companion, so you can certainly revisit it there. Okay, so I kind of just briefly mentioned that there was some assessments and tools that are provided. So how you assess students in phonics is really going to be similar to how we assess them in other subject areas. So we know that assessment's ongoing, it's happening daily in our classrooms. While there is a screener tool that we're going to use, there also is that portion of that anecdotal observations and informal assessments that take place daily. And so the Phonics Companion addresses all those types of assessments. So there is the quick screener, which I just mentioned, and then there's options and suggestions for anecdotal reporting, informal assessment, as well as formal assessment. And so again, all of those tools, you can find those in that information in the book, but also the tools are available on the website. That's where you're going to get the tools from. So of course, while our assessments will focus on students' understanding of the letter sound correspondences taught during the lesson, we really want to also make sure that they're applying what they've learned to new words across their learning. So that's why it's really important too that anecdotal and informal assessments are happening as well. And then, of course, the quick screener that's provided, just kind of a little bit of background on it. It's really to determine students' knowledge of the letter sound correspondences. And it's really designed so that it can help you as the teacher to determine each student's knowledge at the beginning of the year. So you can decide what's a good starting point, especially if you're working, let's say, with grade 2 or 3 students. Also to monitor students' progress and to establish small groups for more targeted instruction should some of your students need that. So now full instructions for using the screener are on the website. And so I'll show you that when we get there. One of the other features that I briefly mentioned, and I will show you a video clip of it when I jump off my slides, is the SLP corner. So these are short video clips. As I mentioned before, they are student friendly and they're a feature in each lesson. So this speech language pathologist, Lisa Cole, is actually from Edmonton, Alberta. So it's nice to be able to have another Albertan part of this project. But she walks the teachers and the students through the physical steps needed to pronounce the sound which the lessons is focusing on. So we're actually, when we view it, we're going to watch lesson 3 around the letter S, and you'll be able to see how she provides clear instructions for the students on how to produce that sound. So again, it not only helps the teacher, but also helps the students in understanding the mechanics involved in correctly pronouncing sound or letter combinations. So this is a really, really helpful tool that will be beneficial to both teachers and students. So we'll watch one when we jump over there. Okay, I'm going to walk you through a lesson just to kind of show you what it looks like, and then we'll look at some of those extra tools that are part of the Phonics Companion website. So what you'll see here, I know this is a little fuzzy, so I'm actually going to share a different screen. I'm going to share a PDF version just so that you can see it a little bit more clearly because it's a little bit fuzzy. So let me just jump over to a different tab and I'll share that with you. You'll be able to see a little bit of a clearer view. Okay, so hopefully you can see the lesson on my screen now. Lesson 4. And so what you'll see here is there's target and challenge words. So each lesson has target and challenge words unique to the lesson, and they really exemplify the focus for the lesson. So there's a maximum of 6 target words and 4 challenge words. There's also the words are also provided on the online masters. So you're going to get those on the companion website. That's where all the masters sit. And you can also display the words digitally one at a time too. So you can use that just to display them on your smartboard if that works for you. You'll notice on the left-hand side, there's the materials list. So whatever you'll need for the lesson, and all the lessons are organized this way. So if you need line masters or any additional materials, it's all there. In most of the lessons, there's a decodable book, which is part of the Bug Club series collection, and it will be listed. So and as much as possible, the materials that you need are provided as part of the lesson. So check the companion website. Most of the stuff is provided. There's the odd thing that you might have to provide, student notebooks, things like that. The getting started section there suggests that you do, that you actually as a teacher do a quick review of the previous lesson by asking students to say the letter or the letter combination and the corresponding sound, and then read the related target words, which again, you can display digitally if you would like, or you can write them on a board. And then from there, oh, I missed that at the top, but I already kind of mentioned that, the SLP video. So there's the QR code there, but you can also just go onto the companion website and you'll see them all listed there. They're organized by lesson. So they're really easy to find, and you'll see that when I jump on there. Just trying to be mindful of the time. And then from there, you'll also see then the FYI section. So there's a feature that they occasionally is used to highlight interesting facts and observations. So look for that about the English language, and just to kind of give you as the teacher some background information. Then of course there's modeling. So every lesson has a component of modeling, and that is to introduce the lesson's target words and any challenge words that you want to include. And so that's what happens during that time. From there, the blending to read, this is like the modeling section, and it should be delivered exactly how it's outlined here in the lesson. So this helps students really develop that critical understanding of how sounds blend in a word. And again, there's line masters that are available. And then from there, I'm going to jump onto the next page. So I'm trying to go a little bit quicker because I just want to make sure I have time to jump on the website. The applying piece. So each lesson has one applying activity, and it's drawn from a bank of 20 word games and activities. So things like word bingo, search and sort, those kinds of things. There's line masters, some have game boards. They're supplied for each activity where they're required. So if you need the game board, again, it's going to be on the companion website. And make sure that students have a lot of opportunities really to practice and apply what they've learned in a broader literacy context. The consolidating section is, oh, actually, sorry, I missed on the far right, you'll see the differentiating learning. So that's always included there. And those are suggestions to help really scaffold the activity for the students who need extra support, as well as suggestions to make it more challenging for those students who are ready to extend their learning. So you'll always find that in the margin there. and then confirming the learning under the consolidating piece. So they kind of do a review activity during that section. And then here you're seeing that they're reading words. And then so they suggest like the Bug Club book. There's the Decodable Bug Club book that they're suggesting. And there's some interactive reading also suggested on page 26. Now, after every 4 lessons, this is why I chose lesson 4, there's something called a unit review. And so they recommend that students complete a review that revisits the letters or the letter combinations and the words that have been taught in the previous 4 lessons. So you'll notice that after every 4 lessons that it's there, and it's really intended to provide additional practice for students, but it can also be used to extend learning for students who are ready to apply those skills to reading and writing challenge words. So look for that. That's not going to be on every lesson. Remember, it's just every 4 lessons. That's every 4th lesson that you'll see the unit review section as part of the lesson. Okay. Before our time wraps up, because I know I'm running out of time and I've tried to talk as fast as I can, I'm actually going to take you, I'm going to stop sharing and share another screen and take you over to what's actually on the website, because you're going to find lots of important information here. So I want to make sure that you know where to find it, what's on there, so that when you go searching for it, you know where to locate these things. So you'll see there's the book that you're going to have access to when you get your username and password. The access to the book will be removed when the book is shipped. So it will stay up there until you actually have the hard copy, then it will come down. But what will stay is the Phonics Companion web resources. So this is the section about the resource. There's a little bit of information here. How to use the resource. So you're going to want to look at this section. It's quite important. It talks about the lesson cards and how they're organized, as well as the assessment and teacher tool cards. So make sure that you have a look over this. It talks about the teacher tool line masters that are available. So you're going to want to be familiar with that. A little bit about the quick screener and anecdotal and informal tracking, as well as some of those unit review materials. So make sure that you take some time to look at what's available on this website. I skipped over the welcome part. There's just some background information on there. The related research is great, and they're going to continually update this. So it's nice that, you know, it's housed on a website. So as time goes on, we can continue to add the latest research that's available. Oops, I clicked off there. And then obviously too, there's a glossary that you saw. I'm not going to open that one, but you'll be able to see when you go on there of all the terms defined on there. So that's a really helpful piece as well. The lesson resources, this is where I want to just show you how it's organized. So they're grouped lessons 1 to 4, 5 to 8, so in groups of 4. You can also just toggle at the top to select the lessons that you want to open, and you can also change it to view it as a list rather than a grid. So a few options there as you're viewing it. But this, I'm just going to show you quickly just the video. It's only 1 minute long, but I just want you to see what it looks like and how it's organized. So I'm just going to click on there, and hopefully you'll be able to hear the sound. Let me know if you can't.
Hi, Siobhan. I don't hear the sound.
Oh, you don't hear the sound?
No.
Okay. I don't know what I need to do on my end to share it.
I think when you shared your screen, you would had to have enabled computer sound.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me see if I can stop sharing for just a quick sec. And I won't play the whole video, but maybe I'll just play part of it. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's try this again.
This movement pattern creates a small groove.
You got sound? Okay, I'll start from the beginning, and I'll just play a little bit of it. I won't play the whole video.
Pronounce consonant S. S. Raise your tongue to almost touch the bumpy ridge behind your front teeth. The sides of your tongue are touching your upper teeth. This movement pattern creates a small groove in the middle of your tongue.
So I'm going to stop it there. It's about just over a minute long, but you can see how it is really student friendly. So that's why these videos were created. They were intended for not just teacher use, but also for you to share with your students. Also on this website or on this section of the website, here's all of the templates and masters that you'll need. So like, here's the word cards. You'll be able to download these, but you'll be able to see what they look like. So anything that you need for each lesson, the word cards and masters, you will find all of those on this website. So this is where you're going to check back for all those key pieces that you need. And then finally, I'm just aware that I only have about a minute left. Let me see if I can go back here. There we go. There is the assessments and teacher tools. So same thing, you can adjust how you want to view this. There's some general support that you're going to want to look at, overview chart, differentiation strategies, the alphabet song. And then of course from there, let me just go back one. Sorry about that. You'll see the line masters, teacher tool line masters, and so on, and the unit line masters, the review materials. So those are all housed here. So again, make sure you take some time to go on here, because this is where you're going to find those pieces that are referenced in the materials list of the lesson. Now, I do know that you all have other sessions to go to. I hope you look forward to receiving your access to the Phonics Companion, and be sure to reach out if you have questions to your consultants. They can always follow up with us, and maybe we can look at offering a more in-depth session in the future. But thanks again for joining. Good luck with the start of a new school year, and take care. I'm happy to hang on for a few minutes if people have questions.
Thank you so much, Siobhan. I know that's a lot to try to get through in a short amount of time, but really it's just an overview, and I hope gets people excited about the resource. District will be supporting you with this. So you can expect PD from myself or from Kimberly Goosen, and we might even reach back out to Pearson and get maybe a more in depth from them. So thanks everybody. I hope it gave you a quick little taste of what to expect. Sorry for the computer glitches, but do go and enjoy your second session. If you have a question, put it in the chat or feel free to ask Siobhan.
I think there's some questions around access, how they get their access.
Yeah, I did put in the chat. The access is going through Lynn Leslie and the new curriculum consultant people. So I did ask about it earlier, and they said it's coming sooner than later because we do have access to that digital piece right now. So expect it sooner than later, and you will know when you have it because we'll make a big deal out of it. Yeah, and do not create your own login, as Crystal put in the chat there, because Lynn Leslie has the logins for schools. Thanks, Crystal.
Not a problem. And thanks so much, Christine, for jumping into all those questions, answers, and appreciate it very much. It's nice to finally get to see you again instead of just being away.
It is nice.
Absolutely.
It is a phenomenal resource, and I was playing around on the digital site. It's super easy to navigate.
Great. Oh, I see
Not
you're
seeing any
muted,
more questions.
Siobhan.
I'm on mute. I said, so sorry, it seemed I really rushed through that. There was
Okay.
I was trying to be mindful of the time. I know they have other things to go to, so it was
great.
I talked as fast as I could.
Yeah. No, it's a nice just an overview of what's coming, right? Something to it's a
Absolutely.
shift though, I think. But I love the support in that explicit piece. This resource has really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, and then the nice part too is it is not just Canadian, but you know, it's like Alberta
It's Albertan.
homegrown, right?
100% aligned with our curriculum.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some
That
really
happen.
smart people behind it. Dr. George Giorgio is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Well,
I'm
I
going to jump
don't
off
see any
and I'll join the
questions,
next
so
one.
I think I'm going to pop off because I have another session to host.
Okay, see you in a bit.
All right.